Right, hello. So we're back in this position so you can see the keys. So I'm just going to update where I am with the jazz stuff. I've been looking at the Barry Harris diminished sixth scale, which is a totally different direction to the stuff I've been looking at before. But loads of people on YouTube seem to cover this stuff, and I've had a couple of recommendations to look at it. So that's where I'm at the moment. There's a good channel called Jazz Skills, which I'm kind of taking some inspiration from. I've only looked at one video, so that's kind of the one I've been looking at. But I looked at this many years ago, and it kind of totally didn't make sense to me. There was this feeling that it was just loads of different complicated chords that were added. But it's actually simpler, because if you start with I'll show you the scale first. It's a C major with an added A flat, basically. So what that lets you do is go up in triads. There's the first, the third, the fifth. The seventh is this one, because there's now 8 notes in the scale. So it's not that, it's that. So we're going to call that a C major 6 chord, because that's what everyone calls it. And what we do is we go up in triads like this. And that kind of alternates between C6 and diminished, basically. And the diminished is super versatile, so I suppose you could be playing this in kind of consecutive. Business, if you're feeling like you want to do that, or you can even do it in an A minor. And I'm pretty sure you can do the 2 in there as well if you want. Like the 2, let's say D minor. And it'll kind of give you all this stuff. But it seems like the main way that this helps is it gives you some movement. So you know if you're on a 6 chord, you can kind of wiggle up and down a bit. For me, this hasn't quite matched up with the other stuff I've learned yet, so I'm still learning it. But I find it surprisingly nice to play, even in other keys. So even in like this, because I'm comfortable with the diminished shape, and all I'm thinking is that chord alternated with a diminished. That one, and you just kind of keep going up. Still takes me a little while, but. So there's that. There's also the minor 6, which sounds really cool. So instead of C major, all you do is substitute the E for an E flat. And you get that chord, basically. And that chord, it does the same thing, same function. So that's been super interesting to look at, and I think I'm going to get comfortable with how to apply that first. I don't know if it's actually applicable to the thing I'm learning, which is built off the rhythm changes, but I've taken that so far from what it's meant to be that I'm not actually convinced that I'm ever going to be able to play that right anyway. It's just been my template to learn all of these different things sporadically. So if you're here and you go up in this key, let's try and work it out. The problem is, once you get to the G chord, you've got to start changing things around a bit. So I think you can actually do that, because what that G chord is doing is leading you to C minor, so that could be the diminished. In C minor. I don't know then about how you do the F7. I think probably you need to do something else complicated that I'm not thinking of yet. So I kind of can see how it can fit into the first chord, right? But then I forget. Then I've got to be able to do it for the key change, which is an E flat. So then I've got to recalibrate. And think about where I'm at. So yeah, then I get a bit stuck really. And then I don't know what to do about this one. I think I've got to think that I'm going to D flat basically. Which would mean that this is my thing. But the thing is, I go to a D. Yeah, so it gets very confusing because then I have to shift again. And do I think the B flat scale instead. So I've got to find a way to pivot on a diminished somewhere. So we go from like E flat, we're in this key, so let's do our thingy. E flat 6. Then I've got to think in D flat. So I've got to think in D flat and the diminished thing of D flat. So that would be I lose track of my 7th and 3rd. So this is obviously only useful at the moment when I'm outlining the bass and playing chords in the right hand, but I kind of see how that works vaguely. So that's where I'm at with these scales. I don't know if I'm doing anything wrong. I think I understand. It's like an alternating tonic 6 with a diminished in between, and that diminished is then your key to lots of other places, which is kind of answering my question about what to do with that section where I get lost in the harmony. Let's just look at that bit. I haven't got long, I've got to teach, but I just want to look at that bit one more time. So we take our A flat, and we've got to remember that what we're really aiming for is this kind of chord, to then go around. Now I've got to think about this one carefully. Oh, no, I messed up. Because it goes to him. Then I've got to think in D. No, I've got to think in G. So that means if I go to the diminished. Yeah, that's cool. And then I got to think in C minor. And then because of the chord outlines I've learned already, I feel like I'm starting to see that is one of those chords in the scale with a suspension, right? And so is the B flat is not, however, so I think the B flat for now doesn't. Screen went off. Oops. Anyway, so the B flat is gonna have to be a passing note, basically. That kind of thing. And then I got to think carefully, because now I'm in B flat again. And I feel like I can be a lot more lyrical with this too. And I'm just doing the basic inversions that I've kind of figured out. I'm sure there's all sorts of cool things. And then we have to segue our way back into but it's really elegant because that's our thing, and then we go to the diminished of the B flat, which is pretty cool. That leads us onto the F chord, basically. Then I've got to think E flat, right? And then all the work is done for me in a way. So I've just got to remember what the E flat 6 is. D. And then at some point I've got to start thinking in D flat, and that's where I get caught out. So. Flat 6. Yeah, but that's cool, right? That is no, that's a 9. That's B flat 9. And then I got to start thinking from that diminished chord. Really, I've got to start thinking, I think, in C minor from there. So from the D flat to C minor. So, oh, hang on. Someone's at the door. I will just go and let them in. But anyway, that's where I'm at, basically.